Hi, and welcome to Sky Notes Weekly Astrology Update. June 10th to the 17th is one of the quieter weeks astrologically in the month of June. You can use that to help navigate the bigger transitions. What can you do? Come find out as we check our Sky Notes.
Welcome to Sky Notes, everybody. What are we talking about today, Tracy?
We're going to talk about the week of June, the astrology of the week of June 17th to the 14th. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today.
That's awesome. And if you haven't been here before, I'm Lillian and this is Tracy, and we're professional astrologers and friends here to share our astrological insights with you every week.
So let's dive into this. There's some excellent astrology this week. I mean, the whole month has a wild vibe to it. And I feel like we're being taken on a journey, as we were talking about in our planning session. Hey?
Yeah, definitely. The themes I have that are kind of in tension are to be selective and precise versus being rigid, and to be dispassionate versus being in an emotional wallow.
That's excellent. Excellent advice. I mean, especially given all the water and the lack of earth, as we've kind of mentioned in last week's episode.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And I have a little note here too. So I listed the signs that the moon goes through this particular week, because we've got so much energy in Cancer, the sign of Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. So what the moon is doing is going to be reflective by all these other planets. So moon is in Pisces to start out with, the beginning of the week, and then it moves into Aries, and then finally Taurus at the end of the week. So to me, that in itself is, if you've got all these planets in Cancer, is quite a roller coaster.
Yes.
Pisces to Aries to Taurus.
I mean, I like the landing, and I definitely have been thinking about these a little differently, because as we go through week by week, I'm able to kind of frame like, oh, wow, this week started with this, but like really ended on this note. So we just had Memorial Day weekend in the States, and it was the first time I could really enjoy spending time with my husband, who had time off from his work. And it was something about like feeling the beginning of the week and then moving through it into the end of the week as kind of a landing. So that moon and Taurus I like. But yeah, the Pisces Aries moment is it's a lot.
It could be jarring. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we've all lived through it with all that stuff, that like Neptune and Saturn moving from Pisces into like we've into Aries. We have felt that sort of on a bigger scale. Yeah.
Right. Like the hangover is still happening.
Yeah. And yes, that's absolutely. I loved you use that hangover analogy, because we really have been on a Pisces hangover for a while. Absolutely. And I think that, with Mercury having gone through Pisces for so long, it did make it kind of linger in a different way.
Right. And we've got that Mercury is in Cancer. And so we've got that more impressions are showing up, more ideas are showing up around that. So it's really interesting, because there is a need to kind of get through the emotions. I mean, if you're affected by them, right? There's also love and yum and sweetness and, ease, and everyone should really enjoy that and tap into that. But there's also like the letting go and being gentle with it, and then being precise with what the outcome is. And there's something that's starting to form from this process for me that's so interesting, that I have to frame against that transit ingress from Uranus in Taurus to Uranus in Gemini, and that sense of being disrupted in such a fixed place to being kind of launched into space, right? To get a bunch of information. So it feels like that tension between being emotional versus like taking advantage of that dispassionate vibe that's out there is that thing that, as a person who loves to heal and has done a lot of emotional work, I still hate feeling my feelings. I don't know what to tell you. If they're happy feelings, fine. But the ones that are terrible feelings baffle me, confuse me, like put me through stuff. And just letting my body sit through it is an art, you know. Um, so there is that opportunity too. But I do love that it could be fun in summer and, or fun in winter, building up to the solstice and,
Yes.
a yummy time together.
I mean, Cancer always has a feeling of growth to it.
Yeah.
If we think about Cancer rules mothers, the whole fertility piece. It
Mhm.
is, it's the time of year where everything really starts to grow and show us that here in this hemisphere, right? So to me, there's always a feeling of growth around Cancer energy, anyways. It's super
Right.
fertile, and then when you have Jupiter in that sign for a year, there's another layer that gets added to that Cancer growth energy. Yeah. So there's lots of positivity. I love what you're saying about the Cancer and the positive side of it, because I think that that's an important thing to remember.
Yeah.
And I find people with the because we talk about Cancer from a protective sort of go take a nap, hide under the blankets place, we forget it's a cardinal sign.
Right.
So there's a lot of activity that is underneath the shell of the crab. There's a lot going
Right.
on down there. So it's something
Right.
to remember. So that's an energy that's flowing through this time right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Good starters of projects.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So on the 9th it's a very interesting day in astrology, June 9th, which is
Mhm.
Tuesday, because we've got in the afternoon, Venus joins Jupiter, which is I've
Mhm.
seen a lot of astrologers talk about this as like the potentially the most beautiful aspect of the year. They only meet up really once a year unless there's a retrograde involved, right?
Mhm.
Um, but the astrology is not super great
Right.
that day around it. So the beautiful thing about that, the conjunction between Venus in Cancer and Jupiter in Cancer, is there's a beautiful gift in that Cancer energy, right?
Yeah.
But now what's the other aspect that's happening that day?
Oh, yeah. So the other one is the trine Neptune, I mean, we're still going to be living through the sextile to Uranus. These are also Venus transits.
Mhm. But I'm looking
Did I tap
at
what
Mercury
you
square Saturn that day.
Mercury square Saturn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had some really beautiful insights about that when we were talking about it earlier. Something about there's a blessing in the Venus and Jupiter. There's optimism. There's hope for something that you want to grow. Um,
Yes.
and then the aspect, the Mercury square Saturn comes along and goes, okay, but here's the pragmatism. Here's the reality of what you need to do and how you need to organize it. It's Mercury. So how are you going to think this out? You need a plan,
Yeah.
right? So there's to me that the way the day plays out, because the Mercury square Saturn doesn't happen until way later. Like actually for you, it's technically happening on the next day because it perfects
Right.
after midnight. Um, but yeah, it's like almost feel like this wonderful day. You're skipping along, thinking about all the beautiful future things, and then you go to bed and you have a terrible dream that or a sobering. I'm going to say a sobering dream,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
About limitations within the thing that you're hoping to create. Not a bad thing, but just something is going to bring you potentially down to earth pretty quick.
I'm just blown away by like almost the need to be in that pleasurable state that's not so constrained by reality, and then what it means to translate that into reality or to go into reality, or how do you get there. And sometimes it's easy. Like I know that when I've tried to catch myself from habits I don't like there's the one that makes me laugh the most is being further along in a project. That's my fantasy. And it stops me from working at all. Ridiculous. But it tells me what it is that I want to see later on in the project. So if I can catch it, that's great. But it's the same with the emotional stuff, this emotional pull. So if you can celebrate, do that. But if there's an emotional pull that's negative, it really is just to counter, to surface that stuff after you filter it through the more sobering connection of Mercury and Saturn.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like with the combination of Mercury and Saturn together, there's a real power or magic in actually writing down step
Oh,
by step,
wonderful. Yeah,
with the Mercury and Saturn.
I
It's a
like that.
very, yeah, it's a nice way to use that energy. And also, especially if you're, not especially, but if you're problem solving something that you're really excited about, right? To me, that's such a pragmatic thing to do, is to sort of
Ah,
find the things that are going to stop you up. To me, that energy is really powerful for that. So, that I just we're in such a strange place, everybody trying to find hope. And so when I saw the hard aspect between Mercury and Saturn, I was like, oh, couldn't we just get like a few more hours of hope before we have to be realistic? But I think that hold on to the hope, because it is important. It's important to see what's possible. And I think
yeah.
that's what that connection will do.
And sometimes it's better to see it in that sobering light, what you actually can accomplish.
That's true. That's true. In this particular case, it's interesting that, I mean, sobering is always going to be Saturn, but because we're going through massive changes with regulations, like at that Saturn level
Right.
of institutions, I feel like, and things are happening behind the scenes that not all of us know about. I think this is happening for most people in most countries at this
Yes.
time, depending on who's in charge. So I think maybe some of the sobering things that come up are how regulations have changed that you might not know about. And so any project or anything that you're hoping to accomplish, I mean, think about the things that have changed with travel, that if you haven't traveled in a while, the things that you might come up against could be quite surprising.
Right.
So things like that, I think that those are the types of things that we're going to run into. And so you're right, it's important that we know them earlier on, but I think that people are coming into a time of realizing, oh, this is actually how it's affecting us.
Yes. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right about that. Yeah. Yeah. And so, but I do like the idea. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna, but we often miss the stuff that comes out of the hardship. And I think the hardships are going to help us course correct if necessary. Or I also think it's fascinating that the hardships only heighten how important it is for you to know what you want and to be clear on it and to ground yourself in it.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that a lot. That's beautiful. Um, so that was the ninth. Well, and truly, it leads into the 10th and even into the 11th a little bit. So, and I just wanted to say one more thing about that connection. The Cancer aspects with Jupiter and Venus are in effect while the Moon moves into Aries.
Right.
And so, I mean, that's actually the piece of it that made me kind of go,
Yeah.
Aries is like bold and brave, and it's just going to jump in with both feet. And
Yeah.
so that thing that people are really excited about when that aspect happens, to me, it's like, oh my God, let's go do this now. And then the Mercury Saturn thing comes in and goes, this is all the reasons why
Right.
you might have to rethink it.
Right.
It was
Right.
the Moon and Aries piece that was like, ooh, yes. So excellent. Write it down though. Don't do anything about it right away.
Right. I will borrow from Rick Levine and say he finds Aries to be ready, shoot, aim. And if you can keep that in your head for that sense of like, let's go and say, is it, wait, up? Have I aimed?
Yes. Don't commit. I love
Right.
that. Yes.
Right.
Don't commit until give it the 24 hours. Just give
Yeah.
it the 24 hours. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be exciting. I'm really excited about that day. It sits in a lot of fun places in my chart.
There's so much like leading up to that Saturday, not to get ahead of myself, but that Venus going into the Leo vibe, it's party time,
And I love that you brought that up actually, because to me that moment of Venus coming in and meeting up with Jupiter is, what do you want to do with the Venus in Leo?
Yeah.
So it is preparatory.
Right.
And so that Aries moon could make you maybe trip a little bit before the
Yeah.
Leo. thing gets underway.
I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that I've found a lot lately is the more I follow my own symbol systems, the more I'm not caught off guard by finding out I'm going to be late. And I'm not trying to be irresponsible. What I'm saying is I am late and I don't give in to the emotional tumult of that, of not wanting to disappoint people or whatever. And then I arrive and there have been technical difficulties, and I arrive when the technical difficulties resolve. Right. And so there's this thing about, like, are these diagnostic flags, right, to throw, saying the moment hasn't ripened? You know what I mean? There's a million things for anybody to do. You got time to lean, you got time to clean. Maybe go clean something. I don't know. But the idea is those things aren't some failing. I mean, I don't know.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm not describing it from that place. It can be a sign.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I have that thought many, many, many times when it's like I can't get out of the house.
Right.
Like, there's got to be a reason for this. Like
Yeah. What's going on?
something is adjusting my time for me. So
Right.
yeah, I've noticed that too. It's really beautiful. And it does, it helps you not get so annoyed with whatever it is, whether it's, yourself, other drivers, whatever. It's a partner putting something in a place you couldn't find it. It could be anything.
Yeah.
But it's true. There are these moments where it's just,
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, very good. And so before we jump into the Venus changing signs, we have an interesting thing building, kind of starting the 10th, the Wednesday, because Uranus starts to kind of, it has this Uranus square the nodes has been building for 10 days before it actually perfects on Friday the 12th. Yeah. And so I'd like you to speak a little bit more about that, what you feel that Uranus square the nodes is about.
Thank you for asking what my take is on Uranus square the nodes. From an evolutionary astrology perspective, things that are squared the nodes represent either a redo, something that was missed in a prior cycle. And with evolutionary astrology, we allow the concept of reincarnation. So it could be from a previous life, and then you look at the ruler of the nodes and get that story first. But then Uranus is going to do the same thing. It does what it does. Have you suppressed anything from your north or south node? And I think the technique, I know I always say this, I think the technique is you turn to the right. And so where Uranus sits, if you put yourself in the Uranus position facing the circle and turn to the right, you see more of an inclination of where you can go to either receive that energy, right? Go to somewhere where receiving that energy. Oh my gosh, I just had a flash of people who collect lightning that shoots into sand and it makes cool glass. So that would be like an idealized version from my perspective, or you just get somewhere where the lightning's not going to destroy everything, right? Without suppressing that energy, right?
Right.
Align with it.
Right.
So that's the notion. And on a collective level, we are seeing that. So we're going to the past and the future and the past and the future and kind of getting an insight from the Uranian level of what's possible. And that can be really disruptive.
Yes. And, we've talked about this a few times about Uranus going through Taurus.
Yes.
And the amount of disruption it created around resources and anything earth, related.
Yeah.
And if we think of the nodes as being attached to some kind of karma, let's say karma, dharma.
Yeah.
This square Uranus in Gemini square the nodes, and especially the nodes being in Virgo and Pisces, it feels very course correction from whatever got missed or misaligned during Uranus and Taurus.
I like that.
And it, this opportunity to go, okay, so what still needs cleanup, and how do we move forward, and what from the past we need to get rid of, what's still lingering.
And to your point about, well, I don't know if we said it during this part, but the feelings, right? All of the feelings of Cancer, beautiful if you can get them out through celebrating. In this case, Uranus, when you turn to the right from the chart, points to the south node, which I think supports what you were saying about course correcting. You know, in the future, you're pulling something in, right?
Right. Well, and so in Virgo, the South Node is in Virgo.
Yeah.
And if we're looking at it from the point of letting things go, it's what's interesting about that is if you're in the marketing space at all, there's been this like there's always talk about letting go of perfectionism, you know, done is better than perfect. You know,
Yes.
that I hear that line all the time.
Right.
This kind of feels like the on a grand scale, letting go of perfectionism and which details are important to focus on and which details are not as important at this point. And I'm also going to say on a grander planetary scale, it's about leaving nationalism and small little groups having the loudest voices behind and looking to the Pisces side around the collective as a
Ooh, I
whole.
like that. I like that. I like that a lot. Like it definitely feels like it's time. I mean, I'm just, you know, come on, for your freak flag to fly. I mean, for you to do stuff that appeals to yourself.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more about that generation, right? Like the generation of Pluto and Virgo. And I'm so sorry to pause, but it's just such a beautiful thing. In evolutionary astrology, the Virgo wants to heal. And so it's interesting, right? Because it's not saying sit on a mountain and receive the healing. It's not doing it from a Pisces standpoint. We're going to find out what that is. It's doing it from, you know, the plan, you know, the stuff, you know, and I'll pull in Gottman theory of relationships. You know, there's a really sweet one where Gottman says, you already know what irritates you about your partner when you first meet them. And so you can assume that up to 60% of what they're up to is not your cup of tea. And so, or 40, I guess, is really where they go. And their whole point is they've got the data. So I'll let them do that. They say, is it worth it to nag them for the rest of their life to change that 40% when you know on day one how folks are? And so it's kind of like that, right? What is the price of admission? What is the bar to entry? What is the quality bar, right? Like if you personally, I've run into this a lot. I haven't been able to articulate what I envision. And so when folks come in to help me, I'm like, you know, drowning person trying to suck them into a vortex. And so it's taken a lot to find out for myself what I want and what my process is and where other people can come in. So anyway, all of that just to say, it feels like it's a time to be, we were saying this for the first week, not dismissive, not cut off, but selective.
Yes, selective and accepting of things that don't affect you. They don't affect you.
There you
Right?
go.
That's been my advice to many people lately. Is the thing that you're so worked up about even any of your business?
I love that.
If no, move on.
Yeah.
Why waste your energy?
Yeah.
Right?
I got another visual for you. I used to always, if I saw trouble coming, you know, and then here's me walking on my path, I would grab it, stick it in my heart and go, help, 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 help. And so if something is crossing your path, let it. And even if you're paralleling and sometimes meeting, which of course, like in our relationships, that's what we want. It's not you, right? Like if you're noticing a thing, find out which part of it is yours because of the terrible unending job of trying to process other people's stuff. It doesn't work.
It does not. You are correct. But I definitely wanted to add a few theme notes about the Mercury square Saturn. That I liked the idea that it could feel like you're not getting to speak your truth.
Oh, yeah.
Feeling stifled by authority, which I think kind of speaks to what we were saying about, you know, regulations changing and that kind of thing. Oh, also with the Cancer energy that's happening, Cancer rules the stomach.
Yeah.
And so when that's really active right now. So anything that any intuitive things that are coming through, check with your gut, because that is the energy that's being activated
I
at
love
this
that.
time.
Yeah.
And so maybe that Mercury square Saturn, maybe there's not trusting your gut, could be right. I often find, I don't know if you find this too with Saturn transits.
Mm.
I tend to doubt my intuition, and I tend to doubt. And with this, with Mercury, it could get confusing about what's your intuition and what is just your logical thought pattern too.
Yes, especially with the trine with Venus and Neptune, right? So you have
Mm,
this cloudy stuff happening over here. And we kind of talked about it as the lengthy hangover from the water signs and how there's a theme throughout the year of Mercury kind of sticking around in water signs, and that being an interesting thing, from my perspective, we could do a better job of grieving things that are difficult in a broad sense. And so, what can we do, right? Or what is it appropriate to do? Or is it okay to skip it? You know what I mean? Because we don't know. We won't know, right? Until
right,
after.
right.
So I like all of those. And I just feel like that Saturn is more about cleaning up the confusion from the watery time. And it may be clunky at first, but we're going to get better at finding out what was going on even in earlier this year.
Right, right.
So, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot going
Well, and Saturn and Aries in general carries a theme of being maybe being afraid to take action.
on.
So it's from what we were talking about before with that leaping before you're ready or you know what the plan is. The positive thing is that Saturn is there to go, are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's interesting. It's like these little moments that are quite different, but they build up to a healthy community. And
Mm-hmm.
because we're talking about this in a broad way, it is about community and not necessarily about how it affects each of us individually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that is it for the week of June 7th to the 14th.
Yep.
The next week, I'm excited because we start off with a bang with
Yeah.
the new moon starting our week. So you'll hear more about that in the next episode.
Yeah. Join us.
All right. Thanks, Lillian.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye bye.